Welcome, everybody, to this week's incredibly prestigious community call. I'm going to give people some more time to join as they trickle in. As you know, this week is a special of the very long-named International Day of Women and Girls in Science. So it is a pretty interesting community call. It's shaping up to be an interesting one. Today with me, I have Yana, our front-end developer. Say hi to the people,
Hi
Yana.
everyone. Hello, guys.
It's good to have you back. Yana has already been on the community call once before. We had an amazing conversation. So maybe once I have some time and I leave the stage, I will look up the link to the recording of that and link it to you guys for those of you who are interested. And also, I have Ania with me today, who's a co-founder and head of research for NIM, which is super exciting to me actually, because I've been trying to hunt down Ania for quite some time now for these community calls. She's the last remaining OGs from the prehistoric days of NIM, who I haven't had on these community calls. So I'm super excited about this one. Hi, Ania. Say hi to the people, please.
Hi, hello everyone. Thanks so much, Sudo. Thanks for having me, and thank you for being so patient. I know that I was kind of, every time I had an excuse why I can't join. I was just very, very busy, but finally I made it as well.
Persistence. I'm not patient, I'm persistent. And in the end, it worked out. It's amazing. But as I said in my announcement post about this call, this is going to be a special one, because for the conversation part, there are no boys allowed. So I'm going to be kindly fucking off the stage as soon as I finish the news roundup, which is the boring part. So I'll do that for the ladies here, and then I will let them have the conversation without me. So it's shaping up to be an interesting one. But before that, as I said, let's go through the news. It was kind of a quick or slower week in terms of news this week, but here we go. So first of all, NIM is in the top 4 most active projects within the Cosmos ecosystem, which is if you follow us on Twitter, which you should, then you already know this, which is which is a great achievement. This is, of course, in terms of development. I think development hours probably, or maybe commits on GitHub. I'm not entirely sure. And we're busy, and we'll continue to be busy building the most robust privacy tech ever. So that will not change in the near future either. And I think many of you who are in this call already know this, but I'm going to announce it once again. Our brand new developer portal is out, which Max, our head of DevRel, has dropped some links to here and there. Super interesting portal because although it's called the developer portal, it really isn't just for developers. So I personally like to browse it a lot, because it's basically but I think the most comprehensive resource that we have so far with all of the stuff about the tech of NIM. So it's definitely worth checking out. Links to all of what I'm talking about, by the way, are being dropped to the community call text channel, which is 2 above the stage that we're currently on. So if you're interested in any of the news item that I covered, then make sure to check there. Our next news item is that our CEO, Harry Halpin, met David Choum, who is the actual inventor of mixnets, as Shipyard Academy participants know from Harry's lecture, which is it's pretty exciting. I mean, I feel like a gossip newspaper just talking about this, but it's but I think it's pretty exciting. So according to Harry, who tweeted about this, there's going to be a partnership coming between the XX network and NIM. Now, I don't really know a lot about XX network. I can't even say it. So maybe Anya, can you give us a summary of it?
Yeah, sure. So XX Network is a company created by David Choum, and I think the most interesting part to mention is that they're also building a mixed network, which is called Elixir. However, their mixed network is quite different from the mixnet which NIM is developing, and this is due to the fact that they are they're built based on different research ideas. So NIM is built on top of the Loopix mixed network, whereas Elixir is built on top of the CMix mixed network. And there are a few technical differences between those 2 mixed networks. In general, we can summarize it into 3. there is a different topology which those mixnets are using. So we use the stratified topology. CMix or Elixir now uses something what is called parallel cascades. The second difference is the mixing technique. So the Elixir mixed network opts for the originally proposed mixing technique by David Chaum, which involves batching of the messages, whereas NIM is doing kind of independent delaying of the packets. And then the third difference is the way they layer encrypt the packets. So NIM is using the Sphinx packet format, whereas Elixir uses a different type of encryption, which is split between the pre-computation phase and the actual communication phase. So these are kind of like the technical differences between those two. And those differences are visible also a little bit in the use cases for which those mixed networks are created. NIM, as you probably guys already know, is trying to build a mixnet which is very general purpose and can be integrated with very different types of applications and services. The Elixir mixnet is more specific for messaging, especially using the messenger developed by the XX Network company, and for sending transactions also related to the coin which they're developing. So this is kind of like a high-level difference, but obviously it's super exciting that Harry had a chance to connect with David Chaum. He's, of course, the creator of all the anonymous communication networks, because he pioneered the idea. So I think both mixed network researchers and companies, as well as Tor and Onion routing, we're all super grateful to him, because if it wouldn't be for him, there wouldn't be this amazing idea, and we wouldn't probably be having chats about anonymous communication at all.
Wow, that was quite a bit more detailed than I could have ever given about this topic, or anything I could have said about it. So hopefully you guys have no further questions. But if you do, then a link to a paper that was written by Ania, which compares our mixnet and the Elixir mixnet, and also the Hopper by mixnet the mixnet by Hopper, if I remember correctly, right, Anya?
Yeah, exactly. So it's like a short research paper, which is kind of comparing exactly those three technical differences NIM, Hopper, and Elixir mixnet have. And it kind of tries to answer the question, okay, given those different design choices, which all those companies did, how does that impact the anonymity versus performance trade-off? Because there's always this big trade-off question. It's kind of this triangle, like which one do you want, scalability, anonymity, or fast performance? And this paper, based on empirical simulations, tries to answer that question. So if you are guys interested, I would definitely refer you to that paper.
All right. So actually, I already dropped the link to that paper in the chat for those of you who are interested. I only have two more news items left before I leave you ladies alone on the stage. So one of them is probably an upcoming AMA with OKX. You guys probably saw the announcement, and also the event is scheduled on the Discord server. And Farnus just shared a link to the event in the dedicated community call text channel. So basically, this is going to be a conversation between our CEO Harry Halpin and the representative of OKX called Janice. And from what I understand, this will be mostly a conversation about the new OKX DEX, but we'll have to see and find out. So you can also ask your questions, of course, otherwise it wouldn't be an AMA. So so make sure to jump just straight back to this stage, but not tomorrow, but the day after at noon UTC to catch that one. And also there's going to be a prize pool of 300 NIM tokens for the three best questions. So also keep that in mind. And the last news item for this week is, I think this has already been mentioned throughout previous community calls, but the first UPA Privacy Summit at ETH Denver is coming up. It's going to be on the 27th of February. A link to it will be shared in the dedicated community call text channel. This is super interesting. This is going to be the first of its kind. And if someone hasn't heard about, or in case someone hasn't heard about UPA yet, it's the Universal Privacy Alliance, which was spearheaded by NIM, along with some other projects in the Web3 privacy space, along with Manta and Secret Network. And basically, it is an initiative to communicate together about the issue of privacy in a more effective way, and also to collaborate on bringing about this vision, because while privacy, so these projects, and there are more projects involved in UPA. So there's also Oasis and Secret and Orchid and Aztec, and many others, and also more coming. They all do very different things from a technological perspective. They all fit into different places within the tech stack of Web3 privacy, but ultimately their vision is the same. So this was the idea behind UPA. So it's very exciting to see the first privacy summit happening, the first UPA privacy summit happening very soon. And even more exciting is that I think there are still some spots left, although I'm not sure. So make sure to check the link that was shared in the community called text channel. And if you want, you can actually be there in person as well. And with that, I think I'm done with my news roundup. So I'm going to be handing the stage over to Yana and Ania with no further things said. And good luck, ladies.
Thank you.
Yay. Thank you so much. So we're going to take over and bring a little bit of feminine energy into this stage, because our topic is very interesting. Today it's girls and women in the science. And yeah, to be honest, I wasn't supposed to take part in this talk, but Sudo called me kind of 2 days ago and said, Yana, how would you like to be a star? So it actually, not what he said, literally, he just asked if I wanted to co-host with him. But you know, guys, how women interpret the words of men in the way that they like it most. So this was literally what I interpreted it, and I said, yes, I want to be on the stage. I want to take part. So I'm very happy to be here and to be here with Ania, which is actually our real star, because Ania is a co-founder of NIM, and also has contributed immensely into it. And before we go into the topic, how did all of it happened, I just wanted to go into the direction where Ania was still a girl, and ask her how she even decided to go into such a technical field to study it. Because, let's imagine Ania, a little Polish girl of 8 years old, sitting and playing with her doll and someone asks, Ania, what would you like to be when you grow up? And Ania says, I want to build privacy-enhancing technology and anonymous communication systems, right? So it didn't happen. So what we want to know today, how Ania decided to take this path, because it's really, really interesting. Tell us, Ania.
Yeah, I really like, Yana, that you assumed that was the story. It really wasn't. I'm not gonna also use, the very commonly used phrase that I was fascinated with computers since I was, 5 years old. I wasn't. In general, how I ended up at all going in this technical direction is two reasons. The first one is that, of course, as I started going to school, I found topics like mathematics, physics, biology, chemistry very, very interesting. So I was always a bit more on the scientific side of the topics than, the other ones. And also, I always was very interested in general learning new stuff and exploring new problems and looking for challenges. And this kind of, I think, comes from my family, because in my family, I had people who, either worked in topics related to science or worked in topics related to history, to technology, and they always kind of, from their stories, I could just hear how fascinating all those things are, and I could just kind of get the grasp of the things which are out there, and how fascinating they can be. So I would say that the first kind of reasons why I was following the more technical path was just my fascination about all those scientific topics and trying to solve problems, solve some open research questions, or general, like looking for questions which require a little bit of challenge. And then as I was going through all the stages of school, of course, depending on in which country you are, they look a bit differently, but you kind of advance. And in my case, I'm originally from Poland. So at some point when you change schools and you go like higher and higher to high school, you have to choose kind of your advanced subjects. So there's subjects which you will have much more comparing to the others. And I was always sticking with exactly this type of topics like mathematics, physics, chemistry, and so on.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, so cool. Yeah, so this is actually, but did you know that you would want to work in the network security later?
No, so once I decided, after high school that I would like to go and study computer science, I started with a more theoretical side of the computer science. So I was mostly focusing on algorithm analysis and optimization. So this is like a field which I would consider much more theoretical than what I do now. And of course, as I was doing my undergrad studies, you kind of have a whole, selection of topics on which you can work, and you try a little bit of everything. So once, I started studying a little bit more cryptography, computer security, network security, and so on, it's kind of, I realized that these topics are much more interesting for me. And then, from my undergrad, you get to my master's studies, which were focusing more on the cryptography. And then, of course, at some point, I applied for a PhD at UCL with George Danezis. And that's really how my story with anonymous networks starts. Because when you apply for a PhD, of course, your potential supervisor offers you some project because you need some funding. And this funding is related to the topic or field in which you will be working. And George, I remember he sent me an email with a summary of a project called Panoramics, which was the Horizon 2020 project from the European Union. And exactly, Panoramics was supposed to be focusing on building anonymous communication networks, something contrasting to Tor and something based on mixed networks. And that was the first time I've heard about mixed networks. And I found that topics very, interesting. It was much more, practical to all the stuff which I was doing before, although at that stage it was not like deployed or anything. But I liked it, and I simply decided to start my PhD at UCL, and that's how the whole, story started, and the whole adventure.
Yeah. Wow, fascinating. So just out of the curiosity, how many girls were there studying with you, like proportionally, these topics, or maybe in your group or in your class?
So in general, how it works at UCL is that you sit in a lab with other PhD students. Of course, they don't necessarily work on exactly the same topic as you. They have their own projects, their own supervisors, and at UCL, I would say it was more or less 50-50, or like 60-40 split. In general, we had a lot of girls in our lab. They were working, none of them was working on anonymous communication with me, but we had girls working on cryptography in terms of the zero knowledge proofs and ZK snarks. We had girls working on consensus for blockchains. We had girls working on cryptocurrencies, working on user studies, and so on. So there was a full, full spread of the topics among both boys and girls. And I think UCL in general as a university, at least the InfoSec group in which I did my PhD, was always very, very open, and they had, both male and female students, and in general in a very nice proportions.
So nice. Well, for me, it's a bit of revelation, because I always thought that there are so many girls even studying such topics. So it's I didn't know that.
Yeah, on the contrary, if you're curious about it, when I was studying back in Poland and during my undergrad and master studies, the proportions were very much different. I think when I was doing my master studies, for like a whole year of 60 people, there were 2 girls. So
Oh, okay. Well, that's more or less the statistics I know and I've also encountered. So that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, well, thank you. It was really interesting to know about your studies. And if we just talk really shortly about me, because I also ended up at NIM and also in kind of a tech, well, not kind of, but in a tech position as a front-end developer. In comparison to Ania, I haven't studied computer science at all, and nor did I study mathematics or physics. I actually studied languages. And some of you guys who have already heard our stage, you might know it. Well, my first education and degree is in linguistics. It's foreign languages, English, French, and Italian. And yeah, I just love communication, and I studied those languages to primarily talk them. And maybe it also falls really nicely with this conception that women psychologically need to talk a lot. And I even heard that each woman needs to say more or less 20,000 words per day, especially such an extrovert growth as myself. So again, when Sudo asked me to talk with you guys today on the stage, I was like, hell yes, this is my opportunity to finally squeeze those 20,000 words on one day, because as a front-end developer, I do not talk much. This is really a loss for me. So yeah, I was studying languages, and this is more or less completely different situations, because in the languages, in the linguistics, you have lots of girls. In my group back in Ukraine, because I come from Ukraine, there were literally 2 boys. The group was like 25 people. There were only 2 boys. So this is a completely different world in comparison to a tech one. And then I moved to Munich, and I continued studying languages. And after that, I was working in very different fields, a couple of years, not really in science, not really in linguistics. And I discovered for myself programming actually out of the linguistic point of view, or just linguistic interest, because I looked, I remember I was working in this firm, and I looked at the HTML code because we needed to fix something in the newsletters. And it was for me also a different revelation, because I thought, and this is a cliche people usually have about programming. Okay, I know that HTML is not a programming language, so haters out there, please don't quote me. So it's not about programming. But I thought, how come I can, as a human person, read those HTML tags and understand the structure of the page? How come the color can be described in a string, like with the word red, for example, or with a hex code? It was really interesting to me, and that's where I started to look into front-end programming for myself. And after a year, I really started to love it, because unlike other tasks, the programming, well, if you write some code and it works, it usually depends on you whether it works. If you wrote a good code, it's not going to break, right? But it's also not going to break if there is a different manager coming to the company, or if you have a different budget for it, or I don't know, if you change the company, it's still the code that works. And this for me was so understandable. It was like another layer of security, because you do something that works, and there are not so many other how should I put it, people or situations that can influence it. And that's why I understood, yeah, I like doing that. And in general, yeah, that people or humanity, they tend to strive for security, for something stable. And that was the field that I didn't work before, where I never worked before. Like programming in this case was for me really reassuring, in some way very satisfying, because it's also very creative. Like you can solve your problem in so many different ways, and it's up to you to decide it. So that's where the creativity and the maybe some different algorithmical thinking is coming in, and that's what makes it so interesting. And as Michelle Obama said, that the question alone, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? It's a very absurd question because it assumes that growing up it's something something finite. Like you became, I don't know, 20, 30, are you a grown up? No, we continue growing up, we continue having different interests, and we also continue growing in a professional way. And so I saw it for myself just a completely different step. And that's how I changed career. And it's been for now, in general, almost 5 years that I've been in the programming, and actually very recently in NIM. And why I ended up in NIM, it's also an interesting story, because as I say, this feeling of security, it's something very valuable. And it was last summer. Well, as you know, again, I said I come from Ukraine. So when the war started, it was really stressful time. So the notion of security became so indispensable for me. It became so important that I just sat there and I was asking myself, what am I doing with my life? Do I really want to center the logos and divs for different web pages for my whole life? Or do I want to contribute to something useful, to something good? And when Jack, our HR from NIM, contacted me, it really clicked with me on a different levels. And I got really inspired by the goals of the company. I got really inspired by the personal stories of Harry, for example, because he's the one who struggles against the, not struggle, sorry, he struggled against the authoritarian regimes. And that's him who says that let's not fight people, let's fight power. And it really responded in me. And I also understood that security is really precondition of freedom in all kinds of the meaning of this word. That's why I was really happy to start at NIM. And I'm still here. I'm very glad and extremely proud to work along such people, such very brave people as Harry, as Chelsea Manning, and as you, Ania, who has been doing this technology and this studies for, I don't know, maybe a half of your life already in comparison to me, because, I don't know how old are you. And guys, this is really not a question to ask a woman. You never ask how old she is. So please don't do it. So that's why I would really, really love to know, because I've joined the company that already was there, that already had kind of everything figured out, and I got so inspired. But let's listen Ania's story, how it got founded, because it wasn't there when she started. So Ania, tell us, how did exactly your research brought to it?
So how I ended up at NIM and how NIM kind of started is a quite nice story. A little disclaimer, because Yana mentioned I'm 31 years old, so that's not a secret. So as I said, I was doing my PhD at UCL with George Danasis, and I work on mixed networks. And I was very, very, very fortunate to work together with a lot of amazing people, and among them being Harry and Claudia. So they happened to be a part of the same European project called Panoramics. So, when the European Union creates this type of grants, usually these are done in collaboration with multiple institutions, whether they're universities or companies. And UCL collaborated together with KU Leuven, so with Claudia, our chief scientist, and also Harry was a part of that project. So that's how I've met them. And during my PhD, what I really focused on is the question whether we can design a mixed network which offers strong anonymity, yet at the same time allows for kind of tunable latency. Because the main drawback and the reason why mixed networks didn't kick off early on was that you could get very good anonymity in theory, but in practice the performance was very poor. So they kind of became unusable for the majority of the applications. So the question which I was trying to ask and to answer was, can we change that? Can we make a design which will kind of, offer both, or at least will offer some good trade-off. And one of the research papers which I wrote during my PhD was the Lupix anonymity system, which is a mixed network underpinning the NIM mixnet design. And Harry had this amazing idea of, actually trying to build a real world mixed network. And it was his idea that, maybe just building it is not enough. Maybe we should ask the question, how can we incentivize and reward the node operators, as in contrast to Tor, where the node are run by volunteers. Another question was, can we introduce some smart working reputation system which will allow people who use the mixed network to kind of express their opinion based on the actual usage of the mixnet on which nodes could be trusted and which ones not. And then another question which he had is, can we provide network layer privacy, being the mixed network, with the application layer anonymity, being anonymous credentials. So he one day came to me with, this idea. He had to create a company, and he simply asked whether I would like to contribute and be a part of it, as, especially a person who knows quite a lot about this particular mixed network, at least. And it was a no-brainer for me, because I believe this type of opportunity doesn't come every single day. I saw it as an amazing challenge to try and see whether, what I've been working on, really a piece of paper, because, when you write papers, especially back then, about mixed networks, they were kind of still on the edge of being more theoretical than practical, because there was no deployed system. And I just found it as a super interesting thing to do. And I thought, why not to try? Maybe we can make it actually work. And I will know whether, what I worked on during my PhD can be turned into an actual deployable system or not. And well, so far, so good.
Yeah, wow, quite a story. So cool. Yeah, well, before we go to the next question, let's do something fun. We have someone here who's asking about your dog. Tell us who he is.
Yes, so the dog which you hear in the background is Maxi. He is a little puppy. He is now 7 months old, but he has a very
Aw.
strong voice. To be honest, at the beginning when we've got him, he wasn't barking at all, and I kind of thought, well, maybe he's mute or something, but as you can tell, he's not. He's very loud, and I think he simply misses me right now. He's a Cavapoo, so this breed gets very strongly attached to people, so every time I close my door to have a meeting or something, he kind of starts to give a sign that I should let him in.
Yeah, really cool. It's a sweet little dog there. Okay, my next question would be about the development of the company, because it started with a couple of employees a few years ago, and now it's a team of almost 50 people and a really big global community of thousands. And the NIM mixnet is also up and running, and it has hundreds of mixed nodes all over the world. So as someone who's been involved from the beginning, how does it feel to see it all grow and scale?
Not gonna lie, it feels quite amazing, especially because when you start so early on, of course, the risks are quite high, and you have no confidence whether your company will succeed or not. And I've been very lucky, or the NIM as a company was very lucky to from very early on work with some amazing people. We started from a very small team, and everyone was putting 500%. Right now when the company is more structured, we have teams and everyone knows what are the responsibilities and what they're doing. Whereas at the beginning, it's a bit more chaotic. Everyone is trying to do whatever task needs to be done. So seeing the company grow from really like a very small group to now a much bigger one, and having all the amazing developers, researchers, marketing people, all of that is just super, super exciting.
Oh yes, definitely. So the next question is a bit combined. Something's coming from the chat and something from the prepared question. So when it comes to the future of our tech and to the future of the internet in general, what are the most important ways to improve it? And what is NIM researching at the moment? And what are you, Ania, motivated about, and what keeps you motivated? Yeah, that was the question from Vesta, yes.
Yeah, so from the perspective of, the research team or the R&D team, I, in general, always say that we have three tasks, like three core tasks. So the first one is that we constantly look at what we are building right now, and we are there to help and solve any problems or challenges which might pop kind of ad hoc. So of course, every time we're building something, there is a bug, a flaw in the design, a certain bottleneck, a limitation, something what needs to be addressed. So these are the present problems which the research team can help. For example, right now we're working on the topic of how can we properly parameterize the mixnet. And this is, of course, something what is very important because this parameterization will impact both the anonymity and the performance. But as we were doing it, we uncover some limitations. We, for example, uncovered that there is a certain bottleneck, or packets get dropped somewhere, or this particular piece of code doesn't do what we would like it to do, or there is lost packets between the client and the gateway, and so on and so on. So these are kind of like ad hoc problems which need to be solved, and we try to tackle them. The second core responsibility which we have as the research team is to look from a bit more far away at everything what we do, the mixnet, the coconut credentials, the token, and so on, and see how can we improve it or further extend. So can we add any new features? Can we support, any new requirements? Can we change, for example, the cryptographic protocol which we use in Coconut? Or can we replace the packet format which we use in the mixed network to make it more secure or faster? And so on and so on. And then the third kind of responsibility is to have a bit more of an open-minded approach and look into, okay, we have those amazing technologies which we're building, but should they be replaced with something else? For example, now we have the Coconut as the anonymous credentials and the means to, generate the bandwidth credentials, but can we replace Coconut with some different cryptographic design, which will be faster or better, or allow us to do more things than we're doing now? And then we also look, are there any other privacy enhancing technologies which would be profitable to add into the NIM network? So right now we have the mixnet, we have the credentials, but is there anything else? What about things like, secure multi-party computations, homomorphic encryption? Is there any other privacy enhancing technology which can be added on any of the layers of the communication within the network, which would make it more private, or it would allow integrating different types of application about which we didn't think about before? So these are kind of the three ways in which I see what the research team is doing.
Yeah, really nice. Lots of work really there. So the next question that we have. Sorry?
Yes, there is something always interesting to do.
Oh yeah, yeah. I see the channels that we have in our company, so much going on. So the next question is again a fun question. So he is one nice guy is asking, what kind of music do we listen to when we need to go deep in the work, and what is the last book title that we've read? So go ahead and tell about yourself, music and a book.
Yeah, sure. So in terms of music, if I want to listen to music when I work, I just type on YouTube focus music, because I'm one of those people who cannot focus on work listening to like mainstream music. Like I like, for example, I don't know, Bon Jovi, but I can't listen to it when I work because I go very much into actually focusing on the music instead of the work. So I just type like, focus music and whatever relaxing thing is streaming there. And in terms of the book title, the last one which I read or I'm still reading is the book titled Thinking Fast and Slow.
Oh,
Kind of
interesting.
like it's a very interesting book. It's written by a psychologist who's explaining a bit how a human brain operates and how we make decisions
Uh-huh.
and what is causing us to react in certain ways and so on and so on.
Is it true that our brain knows the decision that we want to make a couple of seconds before we actually take the decision or have the idea that we want this or that?
Kind of, yes, because from what this book says is that there are kind of like two systems in your brain. One works a bit faster, one works a bit slower. The faster one will immediately make the decision very quickly, and it's based on your experience, on your history, whereas the slower one is the one which kind of will make you stop and think whether this decision which you want to make is the correct one. So it depends really in which situation you have to make the decision, but sometimes it might be that it will be just done on a spot without really involving a lot of, analysis from the other part of the brain.
Yeah, cool. Wow, interesting. So as for me, when I work, I either listen to some classical music, like some film music, or I'm listening to the 80s and 90s love songs, something like Michael Bolton or something, or maybe Roxette. I have a playlist of such music, and I think I've been on it for the last 2 months. I don't know why. And as for the book, well, the last one that I actually read and finished is the one from Viktor Frankl. It's it's a Jewish psychologist who unfortunately used to be in the concentration camp, but he survived. And he has written the book that is called Yes to Life in Spite of Everything. And he explained how people psychologically can survive in any horrible situation. So it was really revealing, but really hard to read because it's a really deep psychological text. Like, it's not something that you read with a little cup of coffee in the morning, like enjoying your life. It's really heavy reading, but it's a very important book out there. Okay, let's go to the next question. The next question is a technical one. So how mixnets work together? Is there any ideas on mixnet to mixnet relation?
Not really. I think this is kind of like a question which is not very much explored for two reasons, in my opinion, for two reasons. The first one is that, the deployment of mixed networks is a very, very fresh topic. There are a lot of, if you're going to go into like research papers, you will find like, whoa, tons of research papers about different mixed network designs. But most of them just remained on the paper. So because there were never really practical deployment of mixed nets, no one really had a chance to look into the topic of should we somehow combine them together. And of course, each of those mixed nets has different properties and different technical designs, which, kind of chaining them together or combining them, it would be the question of what we really want to gain from combining multiple mixed networks together. Another reason is that in general, for your anonymity, it's better to have one mixed network handling multiple various applications and handling traffic from various applications and services than splitting them into multiple mixed networks, each being suitable for just one use case. Because in that case, you're kind of splitting your anonymity set. So I think for that reason, there's no really consideration about combining them together, but maybe the person who was asking the question has some specific reason why they're asking that. Is it for security? Is it to, make it easier to combine with applications?
Okay. Well, maybe, there will be some additional questions to this topic in the chat. So here we have another topic who says, is NIM sponsoring PhDs in topics of interest?
Yes, the answer is yes.
That's a loud yes.
Loud yes. If anyone on the call is or knows someone interested in a PhD focusing on them, please do get in touch with me because we are collaborating with EPFL. We very often have interns from EPFL, and we actually signed an agreement that we're going to sponsor a PhD student studying at EPFL whose research will be focusing on them. So if there's anyone interested, please just drop me an email and I'll put you in touch with whoever you should be put in touch to discuss that.
Okay. Oh, and now I have the explanation to the previous question about different mix nets. It was because we talked about the collaboration between NIM and the XX network. So in this perspective, is how can it work together? Or can it, or should it?
The NIM mixnet and the Elixir mixnet are very different type of mix networks. So, when we talk about collaboration with David Chow, we don't necessarily mean merging those two mix networks together. We are rather talking about, some other topics related to, for example, digital payments and eCash, on which we could potentially collaborate together. Merging together Elixir and NIM wouldn't be rather a good idea because, as I said, these are technically very different mixed networks. So we would ultimately have to change one or the other design, which probably is not something what we want to do. Whereas David Chaum is, I guess most people know not only the inventor of mixed networks, but also of digital eCash and blind signatures. And he's obviously a person full of amazing ideas. So I think there are many other topics on which we could collaborate with him other than mixed networks. And one of the topics which were very interesting is exactly eCash.
Interesting, yes. Okay, I have also another question, which is also about you, because we know that you've also been working for someone very centralized, which is a Google-owned AI company, DeepMind, and Chain Analysis. And you worked there and you were away. So tell us a little bit more about that.
I did the work at those companies. I precisely saying I did internships with them, and I had an amazing time. I enjoyed both companies, both being at Google, working with the DeepMind team, and also working at Chainalysis. Of course, I cannot tell what I worked on because I signed NDAs. But what I really enjoyed about those internships is that I could work on things which were very, very challenging and novel. So the topics on which I've worked, these were not things which were kind of already were established. I had to explore open research question, learn tons of things, which is something what I really, really enjoy doing, and just had a chance, to meet amazing people working on those teams, doing amazing research or implementations. And simply be able to learn from them. And a lot of my passion to working on practical problems came exactly from those internships. So for a very long time, I thought that I will stay in academia after my PhD. And after I work in industry, I kind of found those practical problems and topics very, very fascinating, and kind of being able to contribute to the deployment of different solutions which are then applied in real life is just very fascinating for me.
Well, yeah. And since we talked a little bit now about such companies as Google, here we have another question which says, how can we push forward for mass adoption of privacy tools in a very centralized world? How can we achieve it so that everyone wants to be secure and uses the tools like NIM?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, and it's also a tricky question because, of course, one huge advantage of all of the centralized solution is that they're very easy to use and very convenient to use. So from my perspective, in order to kind of allow for mass adoption, we should make sure that the privacy enhancing technologies which we're building are usable. They cannot be, just amazingly polished on a piece of paper and in theory offer you, amazing privacy, and then in practice be completely unusable or very difficult to use by everyday people. So in all those technologies, there has to be a lot of impact put to make sure that you perform a lot of user studies and you understand the needs of the people who are potentially your target group, or how you can make the system easy to use for everyone. And these are kind of the key questions which you have to address if you want to allow for mass adoption. And then the second thing is that it's very important to educate people and make them aware about the privacy threats and the privacy limitations which obviously occur right now on the internet, and in the majority of the applications or services which they're using, because I think very often people are also simply not aware that there is a violation of their privacy, that there is a violation of their rights, or simply that the data which they share is being used in a way in which it shouldn't be, right? So these are the two things: making those systems easy to use by everyone, and making the whole experience of using them a good experience, and then making sure that people understand what are they losing in terms of privacy using different type of centralized services.
Yeah, really good question, and and tricky one, as you said. So another one question from our beloved Sudo. He wants to ask us, when is the next Yana and Ania community call? Maybe with him on board. So what do we say, Ania?
Yes, whenever you want. So I promise this time I'll be much more organized in joining those calls.
Yeah, I agree. Whenever he wants, because he's been such a great host for all these community calls, so he definitely has the right to say and to invite us and to participate in the talk with us and to give his male perspective on all those questions. Why not? Okay, guys, do you have any more questions in there? Because if not, Sudo, what do you say? Do we wrap up this talk? Come on, guys. You have the last chance for the last questions. And someone's writing. Okay. Oh, yes. Okay. Good one. Did you face any specific challenges as women in this field? Ania, do you want to start?
Yes. So I've been always very, very lucky and very fortunate. I realized that I never faced any big challenges from the pure fact that I'm a woman. I always worked with amazing, researchers, both male and female. I always had a full support. They always were keen to help me. The same was in the industry. So I do acknowledge that might be very lucky. I know that probably some women had completely different experiences, but well, I was very fortunate. So just from the pure fact that I'm a woman, I never had to face any challenges. I faced, challenges that some problems were difficult, but not because I'm a woman, but just because they were difficult for any type of for any researcher, whether they're male or female.
Yes. Well, actually, the same with me completely. And even though I don't have such a long history of tech industry, just 4 or 5 years now, I was also really lucky. I didn't have the problem to find a job, to study. Well, some stuff is really difficult. I struggle and I study a lot. But I cannot say that I was mistreated in any way. Again, on the other hand, I even more feel like I was given maybe way too much credit to, maybe just because I'm a woman and everyone wants to have more women in their companies, which is understandable. So girls out there, women out there, if you want to start your career in the tech industry, just go ahead, because from my personal experience, it's a really good way to do it, and people are very helpful. Every company I worked in was really motivated and helping me in every possible way. So go for it. Yay, let's see. Okay, another question, maybe a last one. What are you most excited about or looking forward to in 2023? Yes, Anya.
What I'm most excited about? I'm most excited about successfully fulfilling all the R&D topics which we have on our list in terms of improving the mixnet. We have several tasks which we kind of want to target, and the most exciting is the fact that I will be able to work on them with a really cool group of people. We're gonna have several interns joining us soon. So that's always very exciting, and I really hope we're gonna manage to fulfill all of them, because then at the end of the year we're gonna have an amazing, super fast, super cool mixed network.
Can you please expand on what is the R&D topics?
Yeah, so we have several of them, but one which might be quite interesting, I think, to the whole community is that we are trying to speed up the whole mix network. And for that reason, we are working on a new packet format, something that can replace the Sphinx, which we're using right now. So that will give a boost in performance. Then we are looking also into hardware optimizations, so to see whether the crypto at the low level can be additionally speed up. This will give another boost. And then we are looking into solutions how to scale on more like a high level the whole mix network, in terms of trying to see how can we support large numbers of clients, how can we improve the performance of the individual mix nodes, and so on. And then we will be doing some also research on looking into various types of attacks against the mix network, and see how well are we doing in preventing them, or whether there are any things which have to be still improved.
Good perspectives. Yeah, and as for me, what I'm looking forward to be honest, guys, since we are a decentralized company, we do not meet each other very much. And as I say, in our company, there are almost 50 people yet. So I'm really looking forward to our big team meeting where we get to meet each other in person, because whether you know it or not, but I have never met Ania in person. I have never met Sudo in person. So this is definitely what I want to have in 2023. Yes, and guys, we are going to wrap up, and Sudo here is asking me so that every one of you goes to the claim attendance channel and get your POAP. I don't know what it is, but please go there and get it. And yay, guys, it was really fun with you. Thank you so much for your questions. Anya, thank you so much for your answers and for sharing your experience. It was very interesting and valuable. And I really hope that people here in the audience liked it as well, because I did.
Thank you so much, Yana, and it was super nice to also hear your story.
Thank you. So you see, Sudo, next time we're just going to replace you completely. Yay. Just joking.
Thank you so
Okay,
much,
guys.
everyone.
Yeah, have a nice afternoon and talk to you soon. Bye-bye.